Hey, Hannah here with Delta Faucet. Today I'm going to be installing a Granite top mount sink. Top mount sinks are a great choice for a new installation or for retrofitting with an existing countertop cutout. They're also compatible with most countertop materials like laminate, butcher block, quartz, or marble. This is the Everest sink, but you can use this video to help you with any Granite top mount sink from Delta. If you have a different type, check out Delta's other sink installation videos. I bet we've got you covered. A couple more things to check. First, make sure your countertop cutout and cabinet base are large enough to accommodate the size of the sink you've purchased. Also, ensure the plumbing for your drain and garbage disposal will fit under the sink. And finally, it's also a good idea to make sure you have enough room to install your current faucet or that you take the proper measurements before buying a new one. Okay, if that all checks out, grab the tools you'll need for this installation and let's get started. Some tools you may need are a drill and drill bit, silicone sealant, a screwdriver, a hammer, a tape measure, a pencil, painter's tape, some scissors, and if you're cutting your own countertop, a saw and an 1 1/4 inch hole saw, and of course, some safety glasses. The first step we're going to do is prepare to cut our countertops. I'm working with butcher block countertops today, so I'm going to cut my own. If you're working with a countertop fabricator, you want to make sure you give them this template and the model number so they can cut your countertop to spec. If you're doing that, or if you're retrofitting, you can go ahead and move on to the next step. Now, it's important that your countertop is set in place where you want it before you tape your template down and cut the hole for your sink. If your countertops are in the wrong spot and you cut the hole for your sink, then the hole for your sink will be in the wrong spot. All right, I've gone ahead and grabbed my template out of the box and I've cut along the dotted line. Now we're going to center it. So I've gone ahead and drawn a center line on my template and a center line on my sink base and lined up my center lines. Now I'm going to consider my clearances. So my finished wall here is going to have a tile backsplash. So I want to make sure that I have enough room for that. You also want to consider where your faucet is going. So remember, it's going in this center upper area of your template, so make sure you have enough clearance for that. And also consider any plumbing accessories. Once you've made sure you have enough clearance on top, you're going to want to look under your countertop and make sure that you have enough clearance in your sink base, so when you drop your sink in, it's not interfering with anything. Okay, once you've done that, you want to set your template, making sure it's straight. Then you're going to tape it down, grab a pencil, and you're going to trace the outline of the template. And then once you do that, we'll be ready to cut our counter. I've gone ahead and cut the hole in my countertop and dry fit my sink. Mine looks great. Go ahead and check yours at home, then we'll move on to the next step. Before we do though, I do want to point out that there are 5 partially pre-drilled holes underneath the deck here. If you want to use a 3-hole faucet or an accessory, we'll get to that in the next step. Go ahead and place something down on your countertop to protect it, or grab some sawhorses and let's take our sink out. I've gone ahead and pulled my sink out and placed it upside down on my sawhorse with a towel here to protect my sink deck. Now these are those 5 partially pre-drilled holes that I talked about earlier. I'm installing a single hole faucet and no accessory, so I don't need to use the hole. But if you're going to use them at home, you want to make sure that you drill from the bottom and use an 1 1/4 inch diamond hole saw. You may want to double check the specs on the accessory or faucet you're using though, to make sure that you drill the right size hole. So go ahead and check that. We're actually going to install our strainer next. Just a pro tip here, I think it's much easier to install now than after the sink is in. So your strainer comes assembled in the box, so the first thing you want to do is disassemble it. You're going to grab your strainer here and your thin gasket. You're going to place it over your strainer, just like that, pressing it to the bottom. All right, now you're going to put this in the hole in your sink. Now you're going to grab your main body and your rubber gasket. So you'll notice that there are grooves in your rubber gasket and grooves in your main body. So you want to line those up and press that in. And then grab your screw You'll notice there is an up and a down on the screw. There's this little lip at the top. So that's gonna go in like this. So you're gonna take your main body and rubber gasket and place it just on the bottom of your sink. And then you're gonna hand thread your screw through your strainer and into your main body. Okay, now you're gonna grab a flathead screwdriver to tighten it down the rest of the way. You don't wanna over tighten this, but I do wanna make note that you wanna make sure that your strainer is centered in the hole in your sink before you tighten it down. Okay, once you've got that good, go ahead and tighten it down the rest of the way. That's nice and snug. Now you're gonna take your strainer cover and place it in the middle of that screw, just like that. Okay, now what you'll be left with is 2 gaskets and a drain nut. You're not gonna use these until you go to hook up your plumbing. Now it's likely that your plumbing will look like one of these 2. So you'll either have a smooth tailpiece like this one, or a flanged tailpiece like this one. So if you have a smooth tailpiece, you're gonna wanna use the slip gasket with the narrow side facing up towards the sink. Now if you have the flanged tailpiece, you wanna use the flanged gasket. You wanna line up the flanges, just like that. And again, you're not gonna use these until you go to hook up your plumbing. Now it's time to install our mounting hardware. So you wanna grab a clip and set it on our sink body here. You wanna make sure that these feet face the sink. Now we're gonna take our included shorter screws. I've preloaded it onto a screwdriver here, a Phillips head screwdriver. And we're just going to screw that into the pre-drilled hole. All right, once you have that snug, a pro tip here is to make sure that this hooked side of the clip is facing the sink. That's gonna make it much easier when we go to place our sink in the hole. All right, let's do the rest of our clips. Now that we have our mounting hardware installed, it's time to apply our silicone-based sealant. We're gonna apply it on this outer edge here on all sides of our sink. Now before you do that, you wanna make sure that it's clean and dry, and you also wanna make sure that the surface around your sink opening is also clean and dry. Okay, once you've made sure of that, let's go ahead and apply our silicone-based sealant. All right, I've already placed my sink in the hole in my countertop, and I've made sure that it's straight and that I wiped up any excess silicone. Once you've done that, we're gonna go underneath and tighten up our mounting clips. Okay, we're gonna tighten our mounting hardware down in the front, then the back, and then the sides. So if you remember earlier, we had these hooks of the mounting clips facing the sink. We're gonna spin those around so that the hook is on the underside of our countertop. Then I'm gonna take a Phillips head screwdriver and I'm gonna tighten this down. All right, you just want that snug. You don't wanna over tighten it. Okay, that's good. Now we're gonna repeat the same steps for the rest of the clips. We've got our sink tightened down to our countertop, and we're gonna let our silicone cure according to the manufacturer's instructions. And that wraps it up. I think it looks really good. If you need help installing a faucet, I bet we've got a video for you. And as always, if you need any help, feel free to reach out to Delta's customer service. They're happy to help.